7:30 p.m. on Monday, February 13, 2023. We're going to begin this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education. We're going to ask everyone who can to please stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Present.
Mr. Bogosian?
Present.
Mr. Conti?
Present.
Mr. Healy? Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Present.
Dr. Olati?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So board members, in your packets, there were two sets of minutes to approve, regular meeting and executive session minutes for January 23rd, 2023. Is there any feedback or questions about those? Seeing and hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. So we're going to switch the order here, and we're actually going to start with the report of the student representative. So Ms. Bimson, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. So I'll begin with how I spoke about last week, the FBLA club, and how they were at their competition. So they advanced themselves to the county championships this past week. A couple of the students, it's called the Consumer Bowl, the competition, were participating, and they definitely put a lot of time, like this past week, studying to win the counties. And they go to the Northern Regional competition this April because of that. Other clubs, including the Academic Decathlon team, also have some recent success. So the AD team won second in their regional testing that took place also this past weekend. Similar to FBLA members, they also worked really hard to achieve this status. Another club is the Irish Club, or Irish Culture Club, that recently made sandwiches to donate to a Patterson organization, and they're also starting a book drive to create a public library in a Newark public high school. The library in our school has also continued their book club for RHS, so students have a chance to speak freely and read a book together, and this past one was about a Romanian revolution, so pretty interesting topics that students get to decide most of the time. Also, winter sports are coming to a close, so basically the next coming weeks or so, depending how far certain teams go for states, it leaves the door open for spring sports to start. These teams have had their interest meetings this past week, so students get a chance to decide what they want to do in the end of their school year. So one of the most exciting reports I have is on the school musical, Mean Girls. So right now they have one dance left to choreograph, and everything else is running smoothly. Their dress rehearsals begin in about a couple weeks or months, and the shows will take place on March 3rd and 4th, so tickets go on sale, I think, in the next, a month before. So that's all I have for tonight.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bimson.
You're welcome.
Comments and questions from board members? Mr. Hurley?
Yes. Do you want to update the board on, I know you had a conversation with Mr. Morano regarding the tables you wanted, or you wanted to consider?
So he was definitely super excited about, they said they were trying to get them for the past couple year, I think, and basically they're going to bring it up at the PTA meeting, which is February 22nd, I believe, and kind of the president is kind of looking to get a committee going and start 2 fundraisers to raise money for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think he had said that they would most likely go out in the back here somewhere,
Yeah,
right?
the grass right along the sidewalk right
Right.
there. Probably
Right.
like 3 or 4.
Which would be a better location than out on the street. And,
Yeah,
more
definitely.
secure. And I think he's already spoken with fire marshal or somebody from fire to talk about, making sure it's out of egress way and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, we'll see if the PTA wants to do some fundraising, and we could look at other sources too to get it done. So I'm glad that you went and spoke with them and that, it looks like some progress is being made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mrs. Sprayberry?
Just so you know, I am now in the high school PTA as a board rep,
Oh, yeah.
so I'll be advocating for you.
Okay, thank you.
I thought you were going to say you're going to write a check.
Name is Jones.
Other comments?
Just as always, I know Dr. Alati, I think, is going to mention, so I'm not going to again repeat what you said and then and preempt what he's going to say. But I think in terms of, again, the breadth of activities and successful activities that you mentioned in all your reports, really shows the efforts of the students and the advisors and the coaches to, do so well in so many different arenas. So I appreciate you updating everybody on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well said. I have no further comment then. So thank you for presenting. We always appreciate your reports. You can feel free to stay, or if you have to leave for other commitments or homework, we understand as well. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Take care, Poppy.
You too.
All right, now we'll turn it over to Mr. Kelly, who has a special presentation on the preliminary budget.
Special indeed, yes. I left you each just a one-pager. This is in lieu of the PowerPoint that we usually do. But I think it's covering all the important bases for to give you an update on where we stand right now. As always, our budget objectives are to build upon the current program offerings to the extent possible. We, of course, always want to be moving forward, not moving back. So we always keep that in mind. We're all aware of the inflationary pressures that are on our own personal budgets, but they also obviously affect the school budget as well. So we're taking that into consideration. Always the need for facilities improvements, always repairs, maintenance. That's a given at any given time. So we're looking at that, and we also, as always, look to our staffing needs. So sources of funds, local tax levy. Start with $45 million. That's what was approved for this year, 22-23. We had a 2% tax levy cap, which simple math there, it's $900,000. There has been some talk about pushing for a higher tax levy cap increase this year because of the issues with the health benefits, but I haven't heard anything more about that, so I'm just not clear that's going to happen. But right now we're at 2%. We may be eligible for some allowable adjustments, particularly as it pertains to those health benefits. Generally, there's an increase allowed above the 2% if your projected health benefit costs are more than, I think it's 4%, and we already know they're going to be a lot more than that for next year. So we'll keep an eye on that. I can't do anything with that until the state finishes the preparing the software. So once I get that, then I will take a look at that. State aid is expected to be announced on March 2nd. Don't know about Chapter 44. Remember we had that discussion last year where they tried to slip through a significant decrease to our tax levy cap, which we got away from. We talked them out of that. I don't think it's going to raise its head again this year, but I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot about it, so we'll see what happens. Federal aid, we just estimate that based on our current year actual. I think trying to get information out of the feds is even more difficult than getting it out of the states, so we just take that approach. We also have capital reserve funds. We'll get into that in a couple minutes. We have the excess surplus, which we've gone through before. That's at $500,000, same as last year. That has to be built into the budget as well. Staffing needs, pretty quiet this year. relative to last year. Remember, we had, I think, about 11 retirements last year. This year, right now, we just have 3. And we only need 2 new special education teachers. So that gives us breakage of approximately $150,000 that can be used elsewhere in the budget. So that certainly will help. We continue to review our instructional assistant needs. Those change frequently as classified students come in and go out and get placed in out-of-district locations. So we continue to keep an eye on that. All of our collective bargaining contracts are set this year. That's a once every 3-year phenomenon. So that the contracts are in place. We know what everybody's going to be making next year. So that just helps with the process, obviously, if you know that. I think last year we were still in negotiations with the REA, so in preparing the budget, I had to do an estimate as to what that would be. And when you're trying to pin down numbers, then that does create some challenges in itself. Benefits, there's nothing more to report there. I did reach out to our broker, to our consultant, and said I need a recommendation for next year. He said plan on an increase of between 12 and 15% for 2024. So we're planning 15% at this point. So that is actually a piece of documentation that I have to submit to the county office. So if he says 12 to 15% and I put in 20%, county office will kick that back and I'll have to fix it. So even if my gut told me it was going to be more than 15%, I can't do anything with that right now. So the other benefit lines are fairly consistent. That's dental. In fact, there's no increase to dental premiums for next year. There's pension contributions, that sort of thing. Those are fairly consistent, so not much to talk about there.
Joe?
Yes.
Does the county do anything with the aggregate of however many districts are in the county, sending them this 15%, 12%? Like every district gets a number and sends it to them and they just say, okay?
Yeah, basically. I mean, there are, to your first point, there are, I believe, 72 districts in Bergen County, which is multiple times greater than any other county in New Jersey. So, yeah, they got their hands full. And, these deadlines that they have to follow are imposed upon them by the state. So, they have to. So, no, there's no analysis like that. There's just individual pushback if necessary.
The one thing, if I can interject, that we do get significant questions from the county, or not from the business side of it, but from the educational side of it. The narrative, we have to produce a narrative to show how all of our educational programs are connected to line items in the budget, where that money's going. And the two folks who oversee that, Ms. Peck and Mr. Rosario, who many of you through CUSAC may know, are very detailed. So we will get more. I think that's fair to say that there's more discussion and questions about how you're connecting this program to that line item. Okay, from a semantic point of view, really, usually not a fiscal point of view. It's usually a semantic point of view.
Right.
Despite the fact there's 72 of them they have to read.
No, they started on those early. Out-of-district tuition is, of course, always an issue. We are fortunate, if I can use that phrase. We are looking at 10 graduates this year, which for a savings of about $400,000. A lot of them are in the VOTEC, special ed students in the VOTEC. So those are cheaper tuitions, so it's not getting quite the bang for the buck that we get for those in, say, a private school for the disabled. But anyway, so we'll save about $400,000 there, but we do have newly classified students. So our total numbers of out-of-district placements seem to be coming down slightly, but not certainly not a factor of 10. Yes.
So with our program, we have students that are out of district coming to our district to be in our program.
Relatively few,
So
but yeah.
that's not a significant source of revenue. Then.
No. No, it's not.
No, it's a significant source of, we don't see it anymore, of students who would be out that have been back. So,
Yes.
students that are sitting in the high school MD program, for example, we, 7 or 8 years ago when we brought those students back, it was a tremendous so we don't see it, but that money would be going out of district, you know. In terms of students paying tuition into the Bulldog Academy, there's a couple every year because the program only has about anywhere from 6 to 10 students, and 4 or 5 of them or more are ours. Again, that money would be going out. So it's an unseen fiscal saving, if that makes sense. The students that are graduating, again, I want to caution that, you know, new students come in, haven't been identified, people move in, and depending on what they need, you know, it's some tuitions are, and before you even put in transportation, before you even put in other services, you're looking at $100,000, you know, in some schools. So it doesn't take, you know, that's a high one, right? I mean, they're lower than that, but so, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that that's going to be money, but at least we're starting off with that coming back into the budget.
Understood.
So the projected savings of $400,000 on from those students who are graduating will be, you know, at least offset by new students coming in, new students classified, and also tuition increases of 3 to 5%. When we have a tax levy cap of 2% and a 3% or 5% tuition increase hurts. So we're still fine-tuning those numbers. Capital needs, this was discussed at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting a couple weeks ago. There's nothing here that they don't know. Firewall, bandwidth, switches, these are all needs that were discussed in recent strategic planning committee meetings. We're looking to lease those, a 5-year lease. That would be an estimated $40,000 a year to handle those things. So that would, the financing would match the lifespan.
Is that something we get through the jointure committee as well? Like the no discount?
No, but we do work through different purchasing cooperatives. In this case, I have spoken to the Ed Services Commission of New Jersey, which is the biggest of the Ed Services Commissions anyway. And they're excited to take this on and help us out. So we've worked with them annually.
Okay.
Anyway. No, I don't believe the jointure does anything like this. I've never heard that. We look at our vehicle needs. School buses, as you may know, we have a 15-year limit on those. Once they hit that 15 years, we have to take them off the road and get rid of them. Right now, my understanding is the next bus has to come off the road December 31st of 24. So we have another year, another year and a half. So I'm looking to put that into next year's budget, the 24-25. But we'll see if maybe I can squeeze it in this one. I just want to keep that option open. Also would consider leasing for vehicles as well. We also have to look at maintenance vehicles. There are some of those that are getting pretty old too and beat up, and they're in the shop more often than not. So anyway, we keep an eye on these things. In terms of our capital reserve funds, those two things, A and B, would be used, taken out of budgeted funds. Excuse me, let me correct that. A, the firewall, bandwidth, and switches would be come out of our general operating budget. Vehicles, if we decide to lease them, or if we need them and we lease them, that would come out of the general operating budget. If not, it would come out of capital reserve, and we do a purchase, straight purchase. The rest of these other 4 items are all coming out of the capital reserve. That's what we're projecting right now. But again, once we get the budget done, we got to see how it all balances out, and changes may be forthcoming. But the high school here in the 230 gym, we've had a couple of different issues that have led to water damage in the 230 gym. There's some window damage outside, and there's also some steam leak from the locker room below, the shower room below the 230 gym. So we're looking to take care of all of that. Estimated cost about $110,000. We're going to continue on the program for the roof replacement at Union School. This continues to be an issue. We did, as you know, we did the roof over the Belford Avenue wing this past summer. This is the Springfield Avenue wing. So this is a program we're trying to keep moving. Washington School, the AV replacement in the multi-purpose room. We talked about that last year. They needed a new clock and PA system as well, also about $60,000. So we said, let's do that one last summer, let's do this one in this next budget, so that's why that's in here. Also, gym floor, it received some damage during Hurricane Ida. We still haven't gotten that fixed yet. It was kind of a temporary patchwork, need to get it fixed. So I believe there are insurance proceeds on that, so we'll get that taken care of. So those are the main drivers of the budget development process for next year that we're working through. In terms of next steps, like I said, March 2nd, we're expecting state aid numbers to be released. Haven't gotten any indication of what direction they might be going. I know Governor Murphy, in his State of the State address, he did say some encouraging things about education, which is usually something you can hopefully hang your hat on. So state aid numbers on the 2nd. On the 6th, the Finance Committee will meet. At that point, hopefully we'll have the budget really pinned down. If not, it'll be certainly a lot closer than this right now. March 13th, we'll be looking for board approval to submit it to the county office for their review and approval. And I'll do a bigger presentation at that meeting. And then March 20th is the deadline for submitting the budget to the county office. Once you approve it, there's a lot of other supporting documentation that needs to be gathered and submitted. It's quite a package that goes to them, so I'll be working on that. They usually they have up to 4 weeks to review and approve, which gives us time to get to our public budget hearing at the Monday, April 24th meeting. At that point, we'd be asking for final BOE approval, and if you see fit to do that, then it's final, and we're in the books for next year, 23-24. Any questions on that? Thank you.
All right, we are going to move on now with the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. In the agenda is the Student Safety Data System Report for period 1, which is September 1st to December 31st. As you probably recall, I have to report twice, the end of period 1, the end of period 2, and of course at the end of period 2 there's a cumulative report that goes with it. This gets entered into to the State Department for their review. Also included is the period 1 report on the HIB training and programs that are done. That's part of our self-assessment. It also gets reported, actually gets reported 4 times, because it has to get reported twice with this, so then it gets reported when we do the self-assessment. I get the board to approve it, we send it off to the state, and they return it, and then I have to report back what they've accepted. Okay, so the Student Safety Data System asks for incidents involving violence, vandalism, substance, or weapons. You'll see in the report that there were 12 total for the first portion, period 1 of the school year, 9 of which occurred at the high school. Violence simply can be anything from a scuffle to a punch thrown or any altercation. Again, I think 3 district-wide is not a large number when you have 2,600 young people together. We didn't have any vandalism in the first period. We had 6 substances. 1 is too many. 6 is not an unusually large number when you go pre-pandemic period. It's not. I really can't say much publicly except that the number 6 does not reflect 6 different students. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. There was 1 weapon. Again, it was in Washington School, as the report says. It is not a weapon that one would have to be concerned about, but nonetheless, it fit the definition. One thing I'm always very honest to say, I don't want to say proud, because I don't like to say I'm proud to say we had, something that we suspended somebody for, but we never try to not call something what it is. Okay, so if it fits the definition, that's what we report it as. Okay. In terms of HIBs for the first section, there was only 2 confirmed. and there were only 2 others that were alleged. So we had a small number of HIB allegations that were investigated. Once again, we chose, through our policy, not to take the option of letting the building administrator decide that he or she was not going to investigate something that someone claimed to be a HIB. I felt it was better, and the administrators felt it was better to do the investigation, because anything that was alleged to be a HIB would have to be investigated anyway, because it was a code of conduct violation. So I don't think giving someone unilaterally the opportunity to say, no, that's not a HIB, was the wise way to go. Putting that into the mix in a 4-month period of school, 5-month period of school, is not a large number. Other incidents leading to suspension, most of these, or if not all of these, are in-school suspensions. And again, the larger number is at the high school, 37, but that includes cutting a class, or excessive tardiness, or maybe speaking disrespectfully to a student or a teacher. Again, not major things, but you know, I'm old school. You hold people accountable for things that are not behaving properly. They don't grow. You know, so these numbers are not alarming, but they are what they are. Like I said, they're honest. In terms of the HIB training, 31 trainings. Those are activities geared towards staff, in terms of training, you know, how to assess, how to deal with, how to prevent, you know, the full gamut. 38 programs, which could be things geared towards staff, but also towards students. And a lot of those do happen during the 2 weeks in October, the Week of Respect and the Anti-Violence Week. Okay? And those numbers are pretty much on target for what we do annually in those programs. So that's the report. Any questions or I can answer? Or? I mean, I have other things to, anything, before I move on to this. Okay. I sent to you all on Friday, and I apologize that I was a day late on getting it into the packet, but it was, as you saw, it was, if you looked at the email that came, it was a lot of stuff. A midterm interim report on goals, okay? And normally, that's something that I, you know, give for your information. You can look over. I don't, if someone wants a paper copy, it was a lot of paper, so I'll gladly get one to you, but I thought the electronic would be a better way. District goals, if you remember so briefly to review, the first 2 dealt really with student achievement, right? One was to do more data mining, digging in data, and then analyzing that data and deciding, you know, how it's going to be used. And I gave you some specific incidences in some of the schools where data teams meet on a regular basis and what they do or try to do with that data. The second goal dealt primarily with literacy, improving by different grade levels, students reading and writing, and we talked there about a new reading program that's coming in, and we talked there about some increasing silent reading and stamina for reading and things of that nature. I've spoken at meetings, though, about the commitment that we're making district-wide to formulating committees to take a look at academic achievement in language arts and social studies, in math and science, and also a committee to take a look at assessments and grading. So I included in the report some updates about those committees. We had our first kind of kickoff meeting. The first meeting of the committees will be in a week. Or 10 days, and then there'll be, I gave you tentative dates for the rest of the committee meetings. There could be additional meetings scheduled, and I also gave you preliminary action plans for each of the committee. The message that I delivered to the chairs of those committees and to the members of the committee is that the action plans are the immediate I'm going to use the word concerns, immediate steps that we want to take in direct response to looking at NJSLA scores and how to, you know, improve them. The charge of the committee, though, is nothing's off the table to look at, to discuss, to dive into, in terms of looking at reviewing how we do our business of education, what things we can be doing differently or better, if any, what things we can strengthen, what things we can maybe kick to the curb, if any. There's no hidden agenda. There's no mandate that we want to change this or we need to do that. It's hopefully developing dialogue among teachers and supervisors and administrators, grades K through 12, working together to get more vertical articulation and just grow a strong program and make it stronger. So those are directly related to those first two goals. And one of the things I'm trying to get my own mind wrapped around and trying to get others' mind wrapped around is I think we have to start thinking, I think the board had a conversation similar to this about their goals. We have to start thinking about this, we have to get this done in a year, because some of these things aren't going to get done in a year. Some of these goals need to be carried forward. We need to make progress in a year. We need to take action in a year. But, if we're going to look at science curriculum across the district and try to address how we could get more in line with the next generation science standards and maybe improve performance and maybe get more kids excited about science, that's not something you're going to do between October and March and say, now we're done. But we could start saying how we're going to go forward in doing these things. So I'm looking at a longer term process with these goals. Okay. Quite honestly, if every year we had district goals about student achievement, well, that's what we're in the business of doing, getting students to achieve. So I don't see that as a problem. The third goal dealt with culture and climate of schools, and I think you can hear just from the report. I know it's about the high school every month, but I think the state of our union in that regard, I think, is very strong. The fact that there's on the agenda tonight, there's a chess club that kids and teachers want to start at Pierpont. You heard about the Irish Culture Club. There's an Indian Culture Club. Kids are talking about let's get tables to have a place to have lunch. All you have to do is go to the play or go to the basketball game or go to anything, and you'll see the student body out and excited. And all that comes, I think, from excited and enthusiastic faculty and staff, excited and enthusiastic administrators, and programs like PBSIS in Union and Pierpont, programs like the SEL that we put in, things which are saying to kids, this is your home away from home, so let's make it that, right? So I see things going in the right direction. And there's a report where there's some suspensions, but you'd also read in the narrative that I sent from Union and Pierpont how at this time of year referrals and disciplines are down. Some of these programs, they are working. So those are a summary. I mean, there's a lot more detail than what I sent you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And like I usually do in this report, although it's not my place to do it, in theory, I gave a brief summary of, I think the board's goals are going in the right direction too. The one on the communication to the public, not only the social media that you've all started, we had the newsletter go out, a week ago. The goal about getting more involved. I mean, I know Dr. Alati and I and all of you talk about different activities going on, getting more involved. In terms of leadership down the road, I mean, I am running a leadership seminar, for lack of a better word, that's most of our administrators and supervisors are attending, which is really a think tank and a discussion about different situations that you face as a supervisor, as an administrator, as a superintendent, and backed with research and backed with academic preparation. So it's kind of like a combination between a tabletop discussion and a grad course, kind of, somewhere in the middle of that. And also I've been working with talking strategic planning about some long-term and short-term planning. So, again, I mean, the board will give their own reports, and you'll make your own assessment. But I mean, I see progress in all those goals. So that's it about the goals. Again, I have one or two other quick things to say. If anybody has any comments or questions on that. I'll be happy to answer them.
The brochure that we sent out last week, I thought was great. Covered a lot of it. It just really showed the progress in the schools where we're at. So I think it's great communication out to the community. So very just positive feedback within our family.
Thank you.
That was nice to see.
Yeah. And I'll pass that on also to the, that's done by, the Laura Bishop, who we use as consultants. And I like that we had the QR code and the link to the video, that people could go and take a look at that as well.
The video was great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Well, Mr. Met. Yeah. Thank you for. I think you really mean. I was nominated for a Grammy for narration, by the way. It was one of those afternoon awards that came out. Yeah. I came close. I listen. I do everything in one take too. So it's. So you have to factor that into it. But no, I think the video was good, and I also think in the world we live in now with security issues and things like that, it was a way that we didn't have hordes of people coming through the school, and anybody could come and look at it at any time. So I will say that it is. I've heard nothing but positive things from people. I hope the same is true for you. I ran into a teacher who retired 8 or 9 years ago from Pierpont, and she had said that she heard about this, came in, took a look, and she was just raving about the way the building has changed. So it's good, and I think, again, I keep saying this, the community's support, not only in getting the referendum passed, but during the process has been remarkable, and it really has helped us all get through it, and obviously the board's support in all of it. So, anything else on the goals before I just wrap up my report? Again, I'm going to let Dr. Alati, I know he's going to talk about some of the things that Poppy's spoke about. I do want to mention, though, that there is a Finance Committee meeting on March 6th. I'm thinking we're going to have a curriculum and instruction meeting as well. It's possible personnel, or it depends on where we're at with the budget. So, a week or so ahead of time, I'll let everybody know. Should another need for another committee come up, we'll let you know. And if we have to move to a different night, we'll try to get one, because I know the finance at this time of year will take a little more time than, sometimes when we try to get everything to a half an hour or 40-minute slot. Okay? So that is my report for the evening. I'll have a few comments on a couple of things when we go through the agenda. Okay?
All right. Thank you. Any last questions or comments from Mr. Hurley for his report? All right, hearing none, we will move on now to the report of the president. So I don't actually have much to add to what Ms. Bimson said. She covered a lot of well-rounded accomplishments. I think it's great to see students doing so well, performing so well with academics, extracurriculars, athletics, a lot of really exciting stuff going on. Looking forward, I have earmarked to go to one of the spring musicals to see Mean Girls. So excited about that. A couple of things I wanted to mention. So on January 30th, there was an NJSBA meeting. And at that meeting, they actually focused on mentoring programs and mentors, something that's got some increased attention at the state level. So they talked about it from a clinical and financial perspective. They had a few presenters. So they talked about some key benefits that I'm just going to share with everyone. We're asked as board presidents to share it out with boards. So really the idea that districts can bring aboard mentors who were pre-vetted. They have access to resources not available to the community at large. And they support families and students really with a number of things, whether it's intervention and referral services, with immigrant or English language learners, pairing with ELL classes for parents, career and technical, when students determine if they want to explore alternative pathways instead of college, when students are at risk for harmful behaviors, supporting behavior and at-risk threat assessments. So those are just some of the ways that mentor programs have been talked about as benefiting districts. So wanted to share that, and also wanted to thank in advance Mr. Healy because at the March meeting he is putting together a presentation for all of us on policy and process. So when we took a look at our board self-evaluation, one of the areas individually that we wanted to work on was policy understanding. So as the chair of policy, Mr. Healy has been working with Mr. Hurley, showed me as well a PowerPoint that he's putting together about the policy process, and something that I think should be helpful. So appreciate him taking the initiative based on our board self-eval. And I think that is pretty much it in terms of my report. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, then at 8:11 p.m. we are going to open the meeting to the public for any items related to the agenda. Nope, all right, hearing none, we're going to close the meeting at 8:11 p.m. and move on to new business where there is action to be taken. And we will start with personnel. Ms. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we have 22 motions to go over, some of them a little more difficult to summarize so quickly, but we'll try to do it as quickly as I can. Number 1 is Wendy Armacost to accept her retirement as a library assistant at Union. Number 2, Ebony Clark, and also number 3, resignations for, number 2 is a resignation for confidential assistant, Ebony Clark, and 3, resignation for Talissa Nahes, biology teacher at Rutherford High School. Number 4, Megan Barone, approve her as a special education teacher for Pierpont. Number 5, Chaz Sheridan, increase in salary from a full-time to, it's really confusing, step 3 level 1 prorated teaching assignment in February 6th through May 10th. 6, Mary Weber as a long-term substitute teacher at the high school. Number 7 is Maria Catlin Akatunis as a long-term substitute elementary teacher at Lincoln School also. 8, transfer for Naomi Vidal, elementary teacher at science specialization in grades 5 through 8 from Pierpont School to Union Middle School. 9, Laura Abram, approval longevity prorated effective January 3rd. Number 10, employee 2648, leave of absence under the Family Leave Act, concurrently also medical leave act without pay for number 10. Number 11, employee 2588, leave of absence under the U.S. Family Medical Leave and without pay through February for employee 2588. Coaching assignments, number 12. And we have listed there following coach assignment: assistant softball coach Gianna Anello, assistant softball coach Gianna Musio, and boys assistant lacrosse coach Randy Rocco. Number 13, coach assignments for the pursuing NJSIA approval to have scholarship sports: assistant softball coach Jessica Perrone, assistant softball coach Anthony Melfa, and boys assistant lacrosse coach Gary Andrew Shetsko. 14, coordinator summer enrichment academy as a coordinator for the academy from July 5th through July 28th, per diem rate at the rate of $5,500. 15, Summer Enrichment Academy curriculum writer, to approve the following teacher revise and edit curriculum for the Summer Enrichment Academy, $15 per hour, not to exceed 10 hours, for Paula Rizzoli. Number 16, elementary co-curriculum, and it says to approve the creation of a chess club at Pierpont School for students grades 4 through 6, following elementary non-stipend assignment for the 22-23 school year, Alexandra Medina, advisor. 17, high school co-curriculum, Approve the creation of an Indian culture club at the high school based on their interest and the following high school non-stipend assignment for a Chelsea Fett advisor. Number 18, summer enrichment ELA teacher. Monday through Thursday for Monica Rizzi. A little confusing here, through July 27th, whatever, 12 days with a maximum of 2 sessions per day based on enrollment at $75 per session, funding by the ARP ESSER 3 money. 19, summer enrichment math teacher. Stephanie Curtis, enrichment teacher, Monday through Thursdays through July 27, 12 days with a maximum of 2 sessions per day based on enrollment $75 per session, funding by ARP ESSER 3 money. 20 substitute teachers for the 22-23 school year, effective February 14th at the per diem rate of $100 in accordance with law. Marie McLeod, Sophia Scheib. I guess that's how I pronounce it. If not, I'm sorry. 21 substitute teacher assistants, and that would be Marie McLeod and Sophia Scheib also. 22 travel reimbursements, and we have for not too many, Michael DeBella, Elaine Lambaugh, Stephen Dunn, Ellen Gittleson, and Jacqueline Kozik. And that's it. So I think that's it, right? No, I didn't do it.
Yep, I think that's it.
Yes, we did. Travel? No. Did I do the travel reimbursements? No.
Yep, you did that.
Yeah? Okay. So then I ask the board with their approval to go over the 1 through 20 motions, and hopefully we'll approve them.
All right, questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, Mrs. Ahmed moved those. Do we have a second? Mr. Sprayberry, any last questions or comments?
Congratulations. You know, just a thank you and congratulations to Ms. Amerkost on her pending retirement.
All right. Hearing no other questions or comments, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes?
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Owati?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. We did not have a curriculum and instruction meeting. Pardon me. Tonight, there are 6 motions that have been put forth upon the recommendation of the superintendent. 1, out-of-district placement. 2, field trips, which now total 104. 3, an exchange student from Spain. I'm thrilled with this. We haven't had that in a long time.
I'd say 10. The last one I was principal, maybe like 11, 12 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. 4, NHIB bullying decision. 5, overnight trip. This is for March 23rd to the 24th for the high school FCCLA club. And 6, home instruction approval for 1 student.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hurley, any of those you want to comment on?
No, the exchange student, there's, policy that's referred to there, 5115. There are very strict guidelines, only a couple of agencies you can work with. There's an age and a grade level requirement that has to be met. And for a while, Ms. Jones is correct, there were probably a period of time when it seemed like we had one almost every year. But then a variety of things. I mean, most recently has been COVID. There was also, a lot of things internationally with concerns over, because, world conditions, terrorism, and the like. I think a lot of that slowed down, but this seems to be a good fit. It checked all the boxes, and it's usually a very good experience for the student who comes to us, and also for the other students who get to, rub elbows every day with someone from a different culture, a different country. So it's a good experience. But part of the policy requires board approval. So,
Ms. Ahmed?
Does that student have relatives here, or
no? They usually pay. I mean, sometimes they do, but most of the time, they're placed with a family, and again, that family goes through the process with the. That's why there's only a certain approved agencies that you work with. Family will, want to be a host family, and they get approved by the agency, and we have to approve. So there's a lot of red tape to go through.
But people can actually, like, say, if they have a relative over in Spain, could you say, oh, I want him to come here for a year? And that's arranged?
If they fit all the requirements, you can,
Yeah.
and we don't have to accept a student. We could, Dr. Hopkins looks through it and usually goes through it. It has an interview with the agency. He's usually not the student because he or she is abroad at the time. And you also have a discussion with the host family. It's not an automatic acceptance.
But that's only for the high school?
Yes, part of the policy. Yeah, and only I don't remember off the top of my head. There's even a window in the high school of age.
Interesting.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Jones, you want to move this?
Resolutions 1 through 6.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Mazzone, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Awadi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will move on now to finance. Mr. Bogosian.
Yes, we had a finance committee meeting 2 weeks ago. We reviewed the state of last year's audit, where we stand with the current year budget and the state of the development of this year's budget, which we've all just seen. Tonight on the agenda, we have 5 motions. Motion 1 is the routine approval of bills. 2 is the January treasurer's report. 3 is budget transfers, and 4 and 5 are licensing for Newsela and IXL learning platforms.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? Hearing none, you want to move those?
I'd like to move motions 1 through 5 on
All right,
finance.
so we have a second. Mr. Sprayberry. All right, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Awadi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to policy, as Mr. Healy is not here. Mr. Mazzone, will you run us through it?
Absolutely. So good evening. There has not been a policy meeting since our last meeting. There's one motion this evening. That motion has 16 policies. This is for first reading only. There's 16 policy updates that are here. 2 are policies to be abolished. 13 are revisions. 1 is actually a new policy. I don't know if the superintendent has any comments on any of those.
Sure. Just very quickly, the 2 abolished are no longer in place. They were state regulations that became policies dealing with COVID at the height of the crisis. So none of those regulations or executive orders are still in place. So the policy is abolished. The 3 bylaws involving board. Most of those are semantic changes, a little clarification about notifications and things like that for special meetings. The one about the election of board officers provided a choice, and it was the committee, although we didn't meet, we exchanged via email the recommendation that Mr. Kelly and I made and the committee agreed with was to choose the option that we currently have in place for the election of the board, rather than going with the other option that was presented. Bilingual, again, some semantic changes. The definition of native language has been changed a little bit. Not a major impact. Also, the forms that are required to be used, we've been using them already, so we were ahead of the curve on that, but they weren't spelled out in policy. The emergency virtual instruction that, every year since the pandemic, I have to develop and the board has to approve a plan to have in place in the event we ever had to go to another emergency shutdown. What this policy did was just keep it in line with changes that were made last summer, and the regulation, which is new, spells out what's required in the plan. So our plan is in line with this policy, even though the changes just came, because it was Strauss-Esme reacting to the changes that came out in August that we had to adhere to, if that makes sense, okay? So nothing has to change in our plan, is what I'm saying. Attendance, there were some reporting changes that were made a year ago. We meaning Dr. Hopkins, Mr. Morano, the administrators, I asked them to, and Ms. O'Donnell, who enters a lot of the data, I asked them to look at our policy last year when these changes came, and they tweaked it so we'd be in line. The board approved those changes. Now, Strauss-Esme, they wait, not because they wait because things that come out of the State Department of Education have a way of changing often. So I wanted our policy to be in line with what we did. We made some changes. Now they came out with the changes we had already put in, but there's also some language changes. So to be totally accurate, we're reapproving, but nothing of substance changed. The same with the HIB policy. They have sent 3 different updates in the last 6 months because the state was slow in getting forms and things like that out. The last change that we approved, and by forms I mean they changed the actual forms that get filled out, and they didn't have the name for the form or the number for the form. Actually, the last policy that we approved had everything in it. Is verbatim the same as the one I'm asking you to approve now. However, there's been so many changes that came from the state, the county more or less said, can everybody just approve the latest update so we know everybody's on the right page? So we're reapproving a policy that we substantially already approved. But again, bureaucracy at its best, all right? The enrollment is, again, semantic and code number changes, and that's all reporting that comes from Ms. O'Donnell's office or from the buildings or some from Mr. Kelly's office. And the school security, they actually just took out suggestions for what should be in your plan and now just have a very short statement that you need to have a plan, which makes perfect sense because we always talk about you really don't want to advertise everything is in your plan. So, the policy and regulation got smaller because the plans, we have to submit those plans every year anyway to make sure they're accurate. So, a lot of changes, but not a lot of changes, if that makes sense. So that's a brief summation, which really wasn't that brief. Any questions? Okay, and this is for a first reading, remember, right?
Just a comment that although the policy committee did not meet, Mr. Hurley sent all the members of the policy committee the revised policies, gave everyone a chance to ask questions, to decide if we wanted to have a committee meeting. Mr. Healy actually had a few questions that were satisfactorily answered and decided that we did not need to have that meeting because everything was pretty clear-cut and straightforward.
Right.
It was some light reading.
What's that?
It was light reading.
Yes, yeah.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Will Mr. Kelly be telegramming notice to the newspapers about our meetings?
Well, that's an
'Cause
option. That is an option, yeah.
Apparently.
They deleted pigeon, but they kept telegram, right. That was one of the changes. They struck through pigeons, right. Well, you never know. If you could find somebody to send a telegram.
Mr. Mazzoni, you want to move this?
Yes, so I'd like to move item 1, the policy for first reading.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Bogosian, any last questions or comments?
As long as he starts telegramming, I will say.
All right, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Olati.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to buildings and grounds. Mr. Sprayberry?
Good evening. We had a Buildings and Ground Committee last week. So as I always say, I'd like to thank Mr. Gamboa for stepping in and just doing, I think, a great job coming in the way he has, and the knowledge that he has and the way he's just stepped up to the job and the task at hand, and learning the buildings, the schools, and I mean, just his presentation's knowledge. I mean, I think he's done an exceptional job. I think the way he presents and the way he comes across as far as, and his knowledge of where we're at with the schools, it was a daunting task, and I think he's done a hell of a job. So, and thank you, Mr. Kelly, for always, you guys do a great job informing us, keeping us informed, questions, anything else. I just think y'all do it. I think you do a great job. So it was a great meeting. I was looking at the mountains when I was doing it, so I was a little distracted. But a great meeting. Mr. Jones was great all the time. So I think it was a great quality meeting.
Thank you.
We have 2 change orders to put forth. One at Pierpont High School for some duct work and fire alarm modifications, and the Rutherford High School more buoys with some interior metal panels, signage, if you will. So thank you for showing me that, the look up, Mr. Kelly, really appreciate that. So we'd like to put those forth for superintendent's recommendation.
All right, thank you. Any comments, Mr. Kelly? They're pretty straightforward. All right, any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, Mr. Sprayberry moved those. Do you have a question?
Not about that, but something else.
So we'll come to it after?
Okay.
Do we have a second on this? All right, Mr. Mazzone, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, then Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Owati?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, now we will move on to old business.
I guess report of a PTA meeting?
Yeah, old
Okay.
business, yeah.
All right, so I went to my first Union School PTA meeting. The entrance was so hard to find. It was like 20 degrees out. I parked my car on the side, walked around the side, to the front, to the other side, came back, no lights were on, came back. I was ready to leave, and I saw one girl go up this. It's like a main stairway, it's just like a small entrance, and you couldn't see lights until you went inside. So I finally made it, and everything was very, organized. There was only like maybe 8 people there. A reason why I wanted to bring this up, I have been in every PTA in Rutherford, and I've been on the PT Council president, I've been on every Washington and the high school and everything. And one thing I always liked, that board members, if they could pay dues to where they're being like a representative. It doesn't matter if you have a child in that. I've always paid my dues, like as a board member, if I went to the high school, I paid that. PT Council, I would pay whatever, and Union School. Now the problem with Union School is, I said, I went up and to pay my dues, and they said, oh, we don't take any money. It has to be Venmo. Is that it? Is that it? You can't pay
Oh, really?
cash.
It's only-
It has to be Venmo, which I have not done yet, So I still have to do that. But I remember as being a PTM, it's nice that, you pay your dues, whatever you are, whatever committee that you see. And it shows that you support the community. So as an ex-PTA mother, always a PTA member, just think about it, because I know when they came up and they did that with me, you felt like connected to the board, So that's all.
Okay.
Well, I, along with many other people, received the distinction of becoming a lifetime member of PTA several years ago. They have a little ceremony, they give you a pin. I found out what that means is you pay dues for the rest of your life. So,
No.
I thought it meant you were
You
free.
don't have
I thought it meant you were a free member for the rest of your life. It just means you
No.
pay dues.
You still.
Other old business. Mr. Conti.
Yeah, I attended the Lincoln PTA meeting recently. Amazing meeting. A lot of people attended. Dr. Velechko talked about a program that they're doing where the 3rd graders are selling pretzels. And it was a program geared toward getting the kids to learn how to handle money and make change and stuff like that, which was really interesting. And it's a program that they're going to be doing throughout the spring and stuff like that. They also talked about, now with COVID over, doing more with Lincoln Woods, since it's right next to Lincoln School. Other than that, the PTA had they laid out how many people they had were members, and I was astounded at how many they have, which was really exciting to hear. And some of the things that they've been doing, obviously the PTA lunches, the circus trip that they recently went on. And then the big one that everyone was really excited about is it's going to be the first Valentine's social since COVID, so since 2020. So that was really fun to hear about what they've got planned for that. So that was pretty much what I heard and saw at the PTA meeting.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Old business? All right, yeah, hearing nothing else, then we will move on to, I believe it's legislation report. Any update? Ms. Jones?
Yeah, one, it's not particularly an interesting one, but it's the only one I could find this time. Senate Bill 3509, introduced on January 26th of this year, 23, establishes a 4-year career and technical education partnership grant program. This is Senator Vincent Gopal.
Okay.
I don't know who it is.
All right, thank you. So at 8:36 p.m., we'll open the meeting to the public again, this time for anything related or not related to the agenda. All right, looks like we do not have any comments, so we're going to close the meeting to the public at 8:36 p.m. We are going to go into an executive session for
Actually,
5 students.
5 student issues and 1 report contract.
Okay. 5 student issues and 1 contractual. We should be out for about 15 minutes or so. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Mr. Conti, seconded by Mr. Bogosian. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.